Prince's last Diddy recording played in trial.
The room was engulfed by the sound of Prince's voice, causing Diddy's expression to change entirely. His meticulously maintained coolness shattered as the ultimate recording of the iconic musician reverberated throughout the space. It was like a spectral statement from beyond Cyrus's grave. What was contained in this recording to cause one of the music industry's titans to unravel? On the third day of this sensational trial, unforeseen evidence emerged, and its consequences are rippling through Hollywood.
He said he would get physical. The one male guy who did things with Diddy and Cassie said he witnessed him get physical. Don, so again, we talked about how the domestic charges aren't, what he's being, what he's on trial for. But boy, it's stacking up. And I feel that the jury is going to take that into consideration.
Cassie alleged that he tended to resort to violence. A male witness who was associated with both Diddy and Cassie testified that he witnessed physical confrontations firsthand. Don, as we have talked about before, these domestic allegations aren't the focus of the official trial. However, the evidence is mounting, and I believe the jury is likely to factor this into their deliberations.
The first Diddy party I went to was at Prince's house. So you want to go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so the one thing that makes this party different than a Jamie Foxx party or any other celebrity party that wrangles a bunch of young women or guys or whatever too, is that Diddy didn't let you bring your...
Wow, things are really piling up now. And I sense the jury is going to think long and hard about this. On day 3, it kicked off just like the days before. Reporters scrambled for prime spots. Celebrities found their way in through back entrances, and the lawyers handled their documents with expert precision. But today had a different vibe. The courtroom wasn't just packed, it was buzzing with energy. Guards were stationed at every corner as usual for a big case, but today they doubled their numbers. 4 officers stood directly behind Diddy's table, which hadn't happened before. A court insider whispered to me that they got special orders that morning, though no one explained why. Diddy walked in unbothered, donning a perfectly fitted navy suit, acknowledging his supporters in the audience with that signature smile. His legal crew flanked him like a protective circle, strategizing in hushed tones. He appeared confident, as if he believed everything was in place. However, he missed the unusual flurry over at the prosecution's table. 2 technical experts were setting up new equipment, something absent the first 2 days. They glanced at connections and consulted with the lead prosecutor, who kept casting anticipatory glances at Diddy. Something big was brewing, something only the prosecution was prepared for. The buzz was real. A court reporter mentioned to me later how people were texting back and forth in the room, speculating about the prosecution's impending revelation. You could feel it in the air. Once the judge arrived, he went through the formalities but halted to make an unexpected note. I remind everyone here to remain composed, no matter the evidence shared today. He paused, scanning the audience before adding, "Anyone disrupting proceedings will be removed immediately." The prosecution's morning remarks took on their usual systematic tone, revisiting prior testimonies and linking them to evidence. It all seemed standard until the lead prosecutor unexpectedly paused. "Your Honor, we wish to present an essential piece of audio evidence newly verified by our forensic experts." She stepped forward with a tiny black device. The defense quickly objected, arguing they hadn't received fair notice of this evidence. A passionate sidebar ensued with Diddy's lawyers gesturing wildly, but the judge ultimately sided with the prosecution. The evidence was properly disclosed during discovery, he declared. The prosecution may continue. Then it occurred. The prosecutor turned to the room and announced words that changed the entire game. "You are about to hear Prince Rogers Nelson's final private recording made before his passing." The space went silent. Reporters stopped in their tracks. A collective gasp echoed throughout. Prince, the legend, the icon, was about to posthumously speak. Diddy's lead counsel clutched his arm. All color drained from Diddy's visage so fast it was like observing in slow motion. His whole legal crew drew closer, whispering urgently as the prosecution connected their device to the courtroom speakers. In that suspended second before a single sound emerged, the courtroom's energy shifted dramatically. Diddy's attorneys sensed the doom that was about to unfold, and if Diddy's suddenly wide eyes were any indicator, so did he.
Trying to listen. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff that I've heard and seen already. I'm really trying to connect the dots here and think like, damn, what if Prince was letting Diddy, like, what if he caught wind of some, I just say allegedly, stuff that Diddy might have been doing that seems to be, like, I ain't talking about consensual things, I'm talking about illegal things or whatever. But I'm just like, would Diddy be that dumb to, like, not think that Prince, this celebrity, has cameras in his house as well? So I'm just trying to think, like, because if Prince has cameras and he's recording stuff, you know, to get some dirt on Diddy, I don't know. I feel like Diddy, with all his cameras that he allegedly had, or no, they actually found cameras.
That I don't know, right? What I know is that he was really health conscious. He was a vegan. He didn't abuse alcohol. I didn't know of him drug. He worked out, you know, so, you know, that also really concerned me, because it made me think that, wow, so you mean you do all these things to take care of yourself?
What you're about to hear has been retrieved from Prince's private vault, announced the prosecutor. The room buzzed with a sudden rush of whispers. Everyone in the gallery leaned toward the action, while journalists dashed off their reports on their phones. This was no ordinary piece of evidence. It was Prince communicating from beyond the grave. The prosecutor revealed that the recording was made just a few weeks before Prince's passing in 2016. It was never meant for the public, she noted. This recording was Prince's form of insurance, detailing his firsthand experiences. As his voice poured out through the speakers, a woman in the third row covered her mouth in astonishment and began to cry. It wasn't merely the shock of hearing him again, it was the tone in his voice. Prince sounded anxious, his voice low and conspiratorial, a stark contrast to his assured stage presence. "I'm making this recording because I don't know who to trust anymore." Prince started, the clarity of the audio revealing even his deep breaths between words. This wasn't Prince performing or singing. This was Prince at his most vulnerable and private. The courtroom's mood shifted drastically as Prince started naming names, pinpointing dates and locations, with Diddy at the center of it all. Prince detailed events at Diddy's houses in the Hamptons and Miami, the same gatherings 3 other witnesses had already described. As the recording played, I watched Diddy's confidence crumble. His eyes widened with shock. His lawyer attempted to whisper to him, but Diddy remained fixated, completely still. Prince's voice became more insistent as the recording went on. "What happens at these parties isn't just wrong, it's criminal," he stated. "I've seen their operations. I know who's involved and who gets hurt." Each word from Prince felt like a punch to Diddy. The power of the recording was undeniable. Prince wasn't just supporting the prosecution's claims, he was offering irrefutable insider proof. You can't cross-examine a deceased witness, nor can you sway him to change his statement. Prince described a gathering in December 2015, listing guests present, including celebrities who had denied attending any of Diddy's private events. He recalled seeing the typical setup in the upper private rooms, details that perfectly matched the prosecution's initial statements. The room was silent, save for Prince's voice. Even the judge was riveted. Court reporters later confessed they had never experienced anything like it. The shared shock was palpable. I confronted him about it. Prince's recording continued. I told him it had to stop. He just laughed and insinuated that I should mind my own business if I wanted to maintain my career. Right then, the prosecutor paused the tape. The effect was dramatic, almost theatrical. Every person in that courtroom shifted their gaze to Diddy. The mask of composure he had worn so well disintegrated. His face blanched, and where his hands had lain steady on the table throughout the trial, they now trembled. His lit attorney slid a yellow legal pad in front of him, likely to obstruct the jury's view of his reaction. But it was too late. The moment Prince identified him, Diddy's carefully maintained facade shattered completely.
Became such a big deal back then is ever since my third album, I wasn't really taking large advances from the recording companies. I was recording the albums myself in my own studio. So the way I looked at it, I owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt otherwise. And they would always hold this contract up and say, well, you signed it. And I say, well, I understand that. It's not like I want to leave. I just want to, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair. Of course, they wouldn't change, because if they changed, they wouldn't really exist. And that's kind of the situation we're in right today. They're not going to exist much longer. But it's not like we're against them or anything like that. The idea is that we find better ways of working with one another. It shouldn't be a situation where they own the album or the work. We're talking about intellectual copyright. If they're going to be indeed a delivery service, then that's fine. But even FedEx doesn't say that they own the thing that they should.
Cassie Ventura took the witness stand for the fourth day in the federal criminal trial against hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The defense continued its cross-examination this morning, presenting her with numerous explicit messages she had sent, aiming to persuade the jury that she was a willing sexual partner who aligned with Combs's preferences. "I'm always ready to get wild," one message stated. Everyone was truly taken aback, and it wasn't solely due to Prince's words. Witnessing Diddy unravel so completely right before us was astonishing. For 2 entire days, he was the epitome of composure. When accusations were directly leveled at him, he remained expressionless. When incriminating photos flashed on the screen, he quietly conversed with his lawyers. Not once did a chink appear in his meticulously maintained facade. But Prince's words changed everything as the recording continued after that brief pause. Diddy's transformation was startling. His attorney, the same influential lawyer who has defended countless celebrities, touched Diddy's forearm, a standard tactic to soothe their client. Diddy jerked his arm away with such force that it caused water to spill from a glass as the defense party I attended saw the princing on. That reporters were astounded, having never seen someone react differently or at any other celebrity gathering where people hurriedly moved around the room. The judge, never losing sight of Diddy, was a seasoned professional who had overseen numerous high-profile proceedings and could undoubtedly identify the signs of someone on the verge of losing composure. Diddy kept adjusting his seat, then reached up to loosen his tie with trembling hands. He leaned towards his legal team and whispered something with such intensity that 3 of his attorneys leaned in closer. Prince's voice persisted, detailing a private event in Beverly Hills, mentioning a specific date, March 9, 2016, and an address already presented by prosecutors in previous evidence. As soon as Prince mentioned that address, Diddy abruptly stood up, not gradually or carefully, but as if yanked by invisible strings. Instantly, 4 security officers moved nearer to the defense table. Diddy's legal team tried to grab his suit jacket to pull him back into his chair. Their faces displayed sheer panic. One lawyer urgently whispered in his ear, while another attempted to position himself between Diddy and the jury. The recording played on. Prince recounted entering a room where he witnessed conduct that aligned perfectly with what prosecutors had charged Diddy with. Diddy's lawyers now seemed desperate, almost clambering over one another to pacify their client. And then it happened. Diddy utterly lost his composure. "That's a lie," he yelled, his voice reverberating through the astonished courtroom. The outburst was so swift and high-pitched that a reporter in the front row visibly flinched. He wasn't even there. That never occurred. The judge quickly hammered his gavel. "Order. Order in this courtroom." He directed a stern gaze at Diddy. "Mr. Combs, get a hold of yourself, or I'll find you in contempt." The room fell silent, except for Prince's voice still emanating from the speakers. The prosecution's approach was suddenly unmistakable. They had purposefully reserved this recording, withholding it until Diddy felt a false sense of reassurance. They waited until day 3, when his defenses might be weaker, to unveil the single piece of evidence that would shatter his carefully erected image, and it worked flawlessly.
In that moment, they had deliberately saved this recording, holding it back until Diddy had settled into a false sense of security. They waited until day 3, when his guard might be lower, to play the one piece of evidence that would crack his carefully constructed facade. And it worked perfectly.
The things that the Diddy's team tried to do was show how they had breaks, and she was with Michael B. Jordan and was with Kid Cudi for a minute. But during that time period, she was still having freak-offs with Diddy, and I think that was them trying to show, this wasn't a controlling thing. Here she was, hooking up with other people. She just was into the freak-offs.
I kind of buy that, to be honest.
So...
she is out of the freak-offs then. She is... when she's with Kid Cudi, or allegedly with Michael B. Jordan, she's kind of out of the freak-offs if she wants to be. So why do you keep going back? Yeah. I know it's kind of like a mental,
yeah.
She still loves Diddy. Diddy was jealous about her.
Oh, yeah, because that was another thing that the prosecutors were trying to do, is show that, that they had a very jealous relationship. She would get jealous when he's with Kid Cudi. Also, Kim Porter, Cassie would be jealous of Kim Porter.
Right.
Trying to show that, Cassie, you were in love with this guy. That's why you were jealous.
Right.
So, this was a real relationship.
It was just interesting to see Chris Brown.
I mean, he's always coming up somewhere, dude.
He is.
Chris Brown.
All right, final story of the week. Final story of the week. Justin Bieber is not a victim of Diddy. So this was one of those rumors or whatever that was flying around in the months leading up to the trial. And to be honest, there was quite a few rumors flying around, was there minors involved? Says if no other celebrity was part of freak-offs, why are they in hiding? Are they in hiding though?
I don't think they're in hiding. I just think other celebrities didn't want to insert themselves. No one wants to be tied to Diddy one way or the other.
Even if you're at a white party, just having a lot of fun at, one of Diddy's white parties, you don't want to be linked in any way.
No, and that's why, all those people, there's a few people I think that have come forward and been I didn't see any of this freak-off stuff.
Diddy's eruption changed the entire courtroom scene. As soon as Prince's recording stopped, his legal team sprang into action. The lead lawyer immediately stood up, his voice barely steady as he addressed the judge. Your Honor, we ask for a 15-minute break to consult with our client. The urgency was clear to everyone present. The judge didn't miss a beat. Request denied. The court will continue with the evidence presentation. He directed a stern glare at Diddy. I expect no more interruptions. Diddy's lawyers appeared stunned. They weren't used to rejection. These attorneys charge $500 an hour and usually get their way. But today, luck was not on their side. Meanwhile, the prosecutors couldn't hide their satisfaction. The lead prosecutor kept a professional demeanor, but her assistant couldn't suppress a slight smile when Diddy erupted. The quick glance they exchanged said it all. Their plan worked flawlessly. They had anticipated this reaction and wanted it on the record. A legal analyst 2 rows behind me murmured to a colleague, "This is a disaster for the defense." They spent 2 days painting him as calm and innocent. That image just crumbled before the jury. The judge addressed the jury. Please disregard the outburst in your deliberations. Emotional displays aren't evidence, but anyone in law knows that what jurors witness, they don't forget. 3 jurors were now locked onto Diddy, observing every move he made after the eruption. Court security increased their presence around the defense area, adding 2 more officers just steps away. One stood right behind Diddy's chair, prepared to respond swiftly if needed. The day only worsened for Diddy. The prosecution continued unveiling evidence directly linked to Prince's tape. They showcased financial records matching the payments Prince referred to. They displayed text messages from witnesses corroborating the events Prince detailed. Diddy sat there, perspiring in his expensive suit. His hands shook so much that his lawyer handed him a legal pad, likely so he could hold on to something. He turned down water when an aide offered it. By the afternoon, he seemed physically unwell. His confident demeanor had shifted to one resembling someone cornered. The final blow hit just before court adjourned. Diddy's lawyers filed an urgent motion to exclude Prince's recording. alleging it might be tampered with and unverifiable due to the witness being deceased. Legal observers saw it for what it was, a last-ditch effort to reverse the irreversible. The timing showed how rattled his defense was. Emergency motions are usually a last resort. As people left the courtroom, analysts were already predicting the future. This will be the moment they refer to when analyzing the case's downfall. A well-known TV legal expert mentioned to his producer, "In just one day, Diddy transitioned from fighting false claims to a man out of control when faced with reality." A seasoned court reporter summed it all up aptly. "I've covered countless celebrity trials and never witnessed a case fall apart so swiftly." Playing Prince's tape on day 3 wasn't random luck. It was a strategic move the prosecution had planned for months. Insiders shared that the prosecution held this revelation until Diddy felt at ease. They aimed to catch him off guard. A source close to the prosecution explained that the first 2 days were meant to lull him into comfort. This is why the initial case felt routine. They hadn't shown their ace yet. The team spent almost 4 months verifying Prince's recording, using 3 different audio forensic experts to confirm no alterations. They knew the defense would contest its authenticity. "Princess, so you want to visit Princess, where is performing and more on the other side of the wall." A key difference in this event and others with young individuals is that psychological moment of vulnerability. The prosecution crafted their case methodically, beginning with witnesses affirming locations, dates, and simple facts. Then they added solid evidence, like financial documents and messages. Everything was arranged so once Prince's voice played, every mention matched evidence the jury had accepted. The presentation wasn't off the cuff. A courthouse staff member divulged that the prosecution rehearsed introducing the tapes several times. They practiced when to pause it, exactly when to glance at Diddy, and maintained their composure for his inevitable reaction. The brilliance of their strategy lay in establishing Prince as the ultimate witness. Unintimidatable, uncross-examinable, and with motives beyond questioning. Prince spoke from beyond, with a trustworthiness unmatched by living testimony. The prosecution's genius was waiting until day 3 to unveil it, coinciding with when media traction traditionally wanes. Cable outlets heavily cover initial statements, then taper off until closing. By dropping their bombshell on day 3, they reignited media interest, just as it might have waned. This strategy wasn't solely for the jury, a veteran legal analyst clarified. It was also about steering public discourse. They guaranteed the case would maintain top news spotlights. As the court session ended, the divide between the legal teams couldn't have been more pronounced. The prosecutors gathered their notes calmly, sharing occasional gratifying glances. In contrast, Diddy's team clustered, visibly strained, making emergency calls and frantically paging through legal manuals. The balance of power had flipped in moments. Once Diddy was a commanding music executive battling accusations. Now, he was a frantic figure witnessing his meticulously curated image crack under testimony from an icon who spoke beyond the grave. By day's end, the scene in the courtroom had altered profoundly. Prince's clear, unchallengeable testimony accomplished what years of allegations couldn't. It shattered Diddy's carefully maintained front for all to see. The trial will pick up tomorrow, but nothing will feel the same. The ghost of a legendary artist just gave critical, unforeseen testimony, catching Diddy entirely unprepared. What industry observers are contemplating tonight isn't just Diddy's plight. It's what else could be residing in Prince's hidden collection. Who else might he have mentioned? What other unheard tapes might exist?